Good morning once again, Faith Community Church. I'm Jason here with Pastor Caleb, and we're continuing the series of questions and answer. The question that we have today is, how do we keep the main thing at our holiday celebrations?
You know, I grew up in a home where our Thanksgiving, our Christmas, our Resurrection Sunday was very focused on what's the spiritual reason behind stopping and celebrating. And my parents did just a really good job of making sure we were focused on what's important about this holiday. Even not calling Easter, always calling it Resurrection Sunday, because that's what it's about, right? Yeah. Our Christmas celebration, we went open our presents on Christmas. We wanted to focus on Jesus' birth. We'd open our presents on New Year's. So we had family traditions that would help us focus on what's essential. You know, I think that you have that sort of quintessential Thanksgiving table where you share what you're thankful for. You go around the table, right? Where it gets difficult is when you go outside of your home. You know, inside of your home, you can establish traditions and you can make sure that you're having a spiritually focused holiday celebration. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Christmas Eve, Easter, Resurrection Sunday, if you want to call it that like I do. Whatever it is, you can control that within your home. What was difficult for me, especially as a young dad, was like figuring out how to have like our holiday traditions, but then infused with our extended family. Right. Especially where we had extended family who didn't have maybe the same convictions as us, or actually like opposite convictions of us, you know, like where they didn't want Jesus to be a part of Christmas at all, right? And so that's where it gets difficult. That's where you can have conflict. And so I would say first, make sure that you have some traditions that are just within your immediate family, where you have control over that. And in your immediate family, you can establish traditions that are focused on the birth of Christ, on giving thanks to God, on the resurrection of Jesus. But then when you gather together with your extended family, make sure that for you, you're focusing on the right things. And what I mean by that is this. If you have unsaved family members and you know they want to talk about politics or they want to sort of bring the conversation over here, remember this, politics isn't going to save anybody. Right. Convincing them of your political point of view isn't going to help them. And sometimes we can feel like that. We can feel like, oh man, like they're so far this side, right? Left, right? We can feel like they're so far over here that like there's no way they're going to ever hear the gospel. No, it has nothing to do with their political persuasion. It has to do with their sin and their need for forgiveness. And so having conversations that are sprinkled with salt. And what I mean by that is figuring out ways to slip in tidbits about the gospel into your conversation. Here's a really easy one. You're talking to your great aunt Velma, and she's not saved, right? And she doesn't think that we should even say the name Jesus. It's offensive to her, you know, on Christmas. And so, like, what are you gonna do? You can't sit there and like share the story with her. She's already let you know, hey, we don't go there, right? So what do? You just say, hey, Aunt Velma, how can I be praying for you? I wanna, you know. How I show compassion and care for people is I pray for them. How can I be praying for you? And something interesting about prayer, it's sort of disarming. Right. There's not very many people who will turn down prayer. And so offering to pray for them can go a long ways. The second thing is this. The holidays are chaotic. They are stressful. And Christians have an opportunity in the midst of that stress to look radically different from the world. And so if you're hosting and you have extended family coming in, the way that you and your wife interact in that stressful situation is going to preach the gospel to your family that won't hear the gospel. And so seeing that and like even like sort of doing a pep talk with your kids and your wife beforehand, like, hey, we're having these unsaved family members here. And we're going to have an opportunity to put the gospel on display in the way that we love each other as a family. Yeah. For me, as a husband, the way that I love my wife should show my unsaved family members that Jesus loves the church and that he lays his life down for us. So that means that when my unsafe family members are there, I need to make an issue of finding ways to sacrifice for my wife, finding ways to help her as people are arriving, finding tasks that I can do to serve her
Right.
As those people are arriving. And then for my children, making time for them, focusing on them, even just enjoying my children in the presence of my family shows that we have a Heavenly Father who rejoices over us,
Right.
who loves us as a perfect daddy. And we get to put that on display. And you don't have to have an awkward conversation where somebody that you already know, you've already tried to share the gospel with them before and they're closed to it. You can continue to share the gospel with your testimony, especially as they're in your home for the holidays.
Yeah, I think allowing people to see what a true Christian looks like is really important, because we see, the caricatures on television or movies or even portrayed in media, and we as Christians have an opportunity to sort of set the record straight.
Yeah.
And saying, we're not all like what you see on TV or how the media portrays us, and being able to do that. And another thing I think is really important is just, with your kids or with your wife, just praying over the upcoming celebration as people are gathering, and just I think it's praying for two things. One is the softening of the family member's heart, that even before they arrive at your house, that there would be, in the days and weeks leading up, that they would have, questions that sort of pop up that sort of ready them to see some of those things and perhaps hear the gospel. And then two, just praying for wisdom to look for those opportunities, because you never want it to feel forced, right? Like if someone, your Aunt Velma loses her car keys and you're like, you need the keys to the kingdom. Like that's not what we're looking for, but praying for wisdom and, okay, how do I insert the gospel into here?
Yeah.
Being that we are getting close to Thanksgiving and Christmas, what are maybe a couple of your favorite family traditions that maybe we could learn from?
Our family Thanksgiving, one of the things that we've done to really sort of bring our family all together, we do a pie baking competition, right? And what I love about this is like all my kids and all of their cousins will like get into it. So the kids are like making the pies, and then they get excited, to get all together, and everybody's gonna taste their pie, right?
Right.
But in the midst of that, we have our dinner, we share afterwards things that we're thankful for. But my family, we're a singing family, and so before we're allowed to eat pie,
not my family.
You have to sing for your pie, right? And so we gather around the piano and we sing hymns, and that's really, for us, I've grown up doing that my whole life. And so that really just orients my heart. And I mean, praising God through singing just the great hymns of the faith really brings our hearts in the right place. On Christmas, one of the traditions I shared is that we don't exchange gifts on Christmas. We gather together, we have a big family breakfast, and we just read the story. We, throughout the month of December every year, will do an Advent calendar as a family, where every single night we usually have a book that we'll read. There's a series of books that we read. The first one is called Jotham's Journey. And it's a historical fiction that highlights the adventures of this boy leading up to Christmas. And it's a great way for my kids to sort of understand the historical backgrounds surrounding the story of Jesus.
Right.
And they learn it through historical fiction, but they also learn the anticipation that would have been experienced by the people building up to Jesus' birth. So we gather around, we read this book every single night. And there's a series. This is one of 4 books in the series. So we'll read different ones each year. And usually by the time we get around to reading another one, they forgot
it.
And so we'll read that, and we'll have a little devotional. And I don't make the devotional myself. I just use one that somebody else has made. There's so many out there for your Advent reading. And there's different ways of doing that. We usually start December 1st, and we read through December 25th, sort of building up. And we always do the last one on Christmas morning, and it's an exciting time for us.
That's cool. I think it's important to establish some of those traditions, and give our family something to anticipate and to look forward to, and then to be able to use that to talk about the gospel and the anticipation of Jesus coming and what that means for the world. I think is really cool. So.
Yeah. And my family loves reading and we love singing. So you need to figure out what your family loves to do.
Right.
But gathering together, the most exciting thing about Christmas should be that God became flesh and dwelt among us. And if that's not the most exciting thing about your Christmas celebration, you're doing something wrong. So just make sure you're not eclipsing the one thing with something else, right?
Yeah.
Keep the one thing central in your celebration.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you so much for joining us here today. If you have any other questions that you would like us to address, feel free to send us a message on Facebook, or you could email Pastor Caleb at faith2u.com. Thank you so much. Have an
Thank
awesome
you
day.
so much for listening.